Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for taking a few minutes to hear what we have to say about water and water rights. I'm here at the request of Roland Kennerly and Lynn. I appreciate the time and energy that they're putting into something that is going to be in the future more valuable than all the oil that we're drilling for right now. It's something we don't think about because right now it's not taken away from us. It's not being limited, and we have all we want. But in the near future, it's going to be limited. So it's something that we have to take very, very seriously, and you have to take a few minutes, if you could, to please just sit and listen to what we have to say. Water rights got started back with the state of Montana taking the United States to court over adjudication. That just means vision of the water and who has what. That's all adjudication means. There's something that we don't like to admit. The state's government has a very strong hold over everything we have and everything that we do today, as it was in the past. The water, technically, the title to it is in the United States name on behalf of the Blackfeet tribe. Just as if you take a look at your deed to your land that you own, it says the United States on behalf of Don Wilson or on behalf of whoever that owns that land. So technically the United States government is the holder of this. So until we get away from the United States and operate on our own completely, they will still tell us how and when we can do things and make a lot of important decisions on our behalf. One of those decisions happened back in 1907 or whenever the court date was, that the state took the United States to court, into federal court, on behalf of the Blackfeet tribe, and the state said divide up the water that the Blackfeet tribe has on the reservation. Now, is that something we agreed with? Absolutely not. We didn't agree with it then, we don't agree with it now. But it's something that the United States had the right to do, and they did it. So, what happened as a result of that court case was the federal court said, oh, give the Blackfeet tribe a certain amount of time to negotiate this. To come up with an agreement with the state of Montana in order to take care of their water rights. We didn't like that idea either. We didn't like any part of it, so we just ignored it. And it sat on the back burner up until the 24th year. And at that time, they put me in charge and they said, "What? We got until 2009 to have this thing completed." And so I did a little bit of research. I didn't know, I felt enough about what it all was entailed, so I did a little bit of research on how things worked, how they came about, what the state wanted and what we wanted. And the very first thing I wanted to find out was what the Blackfeet tribe and what the Blackfeet people wanted. And I found out what that was. It was we want all of it. It's ours. So then I contacted the state to see what they wanted. And theirs was pretty simple. They said, okay, back in the 60s, we opened up water right claims on fee land on the Blackfeet tribe. And we want to protect those people that filed those claims. We don't want them to lose them. So that scared the daylights out of me, because I thought, well, that's going to take up all of the water that we have and leave the tribe with little or nothing. At that point, we had asked the state if we could look at all those claims. They sent us all of their files, and we reviewed every single one of them, one at a time. The very first thing we found out that was almost all of the claims, 97 or 98% of them, were for drinking water, for somebody's well that they drilled. And I didn't know exactly what the tribe wanted to do with that. So we went to a council meeting and said, okay, we've got these water right claims for these people that want to protect their well. What are we going to do with that? And the tribe's consent at that time was to leave them alone. We're not gonna take somebody's ability to drink water or bathe themselves or wash their clothes or whatever. We're gonna leave those alone. The domestic water wells will be left alone for your houses only. Okay, that was almost all of them. The second thing we found out was that there was a very, very tiny percentage of those water rights that were for irrigation purposes. There was a few of them that were for there was a few of those that were for livestock irrigation, but the state decided that livestock watering, stock irrigation. The state decided that livestock watering was so minute that it didn't matter, so they threw out all of the livestock watering applications for those water right claims. That left just irrigation. And the state put some other parameters on there too, some other requirements that said you didn't irrigate that within a 3-year period, or 3 out of 5 year period of time, you lost that right. So there was a few that lost, and what was left was so small that I was amazed that we hadn't settled these water rights a long time ago. And that's what I'm going to go into right now. I'm going to go through, I've got a little layout for myself to keep track of things. But that's basically the compact in itself. And that's what it does. It's a document that says, and it's agreement in the United States, between the Blackfeet tribe and the state of Montana that says nothing more than the state can take this, the tribe can take this. That's all it does. But again, the compact itself is nothing more than an agreement between the Blackfeet tribe and the state of Montana that allows each of us to do something with the water. Right, if you look at it on a percentage basis, the tribe has control and use of 97% of the water. The state has control of about 3% of the water. And I know how that works. The water rights are broken down on a stream-by-stream basis. So we go to Medicine, and we go down that creek and look at who has filed water right claims. Then we find out if they're valid water right claims, and then we decide whether or not we're going to allow them or not. That's exactly the way this whole process worked. We started at the north and went south. We started just the opposite. We went from south to north. And I'm going to skip Birch Creek and I'm going to skip St. Because those are two issues that we're going to discuss here after a bit. But the first one is from the south is Badger Creek. And there are 2 water right claims that are valid and that the tribe has allowed. One of them belongs to Loretta Berthelson's heirs on a 28 water right claim on whitetail. On whitetail. And then another one to Rob Wellman on a ranch that he bought that is for about 200 acres. So on Badger Creek we have 2 water right claims. The total acreage right there is about 220 acres. On Two Medicine, we have none. There are no water right claims at all on Two Medicine. On Cut, we have about 4. One of them is Fred Johnson. He has a valid water right claim. Right now it's being contested. We're contesting it because all the valid water right claim, he can't get water to it. He doesn't have a right of way to get water from Cutbank Creek to his place. There's 3 more down along Cutbank Creek, the largest of which is about 60 acres. Those are people that are actually using the water. We have consented to those. We said, okay, those people can do that. The one that people read about the most are the Hutterite colony down there. They do not have a valid water right claim. to irrigate anything. So everything that they've got that they're using is without authorization and without our permission. And the moment this compact is ratified, we at that point have the authority to go in and remove them from the stream. And that's about it. That's Cutbank Creek. We go next to the Milk Rivers. There's about 3 different tributaries that make up the Milk River. There's the South Fork, Middle Fork, Toad Creek, and North Fork. And that's a tough stream to deal with, mostly because during the year when there's a lot of water, the people that have water right claims can't use it because it's in the spring of the year and it's all running off. During the time of the year that they need it, in July and those months, the creek dries up. So there are 3 valid water right claims. There's Dan Gear has one, Rick Peterson, who is a tribal member, has one, and another fella, the name escapes me, that's farther east. He has a water right claim. Out of all of these guys, there's one of them that has been actually able to use the water to irrigate with, for which it was intended. The rest of them we don't care about. The other issue we have with Milk River is Fort Belknap. Fort Belknap was a tribe that was created under the same treaty that the Blackfeet tribe was. Because of that, they feel that they have an entitlement to water rights on the Milk River. The way it reads, though, is that they have a water right from the eastern crossing. I'm going to explain that. All of those tributaries of the Milk River come together and they cross into Canada. And it goes up by Tabor and around there, and it goes all the way down the United States border and back into the United States north of Haven. And that's classified as the eastern crossing. So the way we interpret all of this is that they can have whatever water rights there are, the eastern crossing, from where it crosses back into the United States, they can have whatever's there. Everything else is ours. But they have created, they've brought up a couple issues about that, threatened to oppose our compact. But the bottom line is it's an issue that we have to try to work with those folks to keep them out of our hair, basically. And that's Milk River. So if we sit down and we're to total all of these things up, all of these water rights that we have, and all of the water right claims that are out there that we agree to let use, it's less than a handful. We have 2 on Badger Creek. We have none on Two Medicine. We have 4 on Cutbank Creek. That's 6. We're up to 6 now. And we have 3 on Milk River. That's 9 water rights. Now I want to go back and re-talk about those again. Now, out of 9 of those water right claims, 1/3 of them are on Milk River, which dries up. That was the other thing I wanted to try to bring to light to the folks from Fort Belknap, is that my opinion was, let's give them all a Milk River. 90% of the 9 years out of 10, it's dry by August. When they need the water, it's dry. So they said, no, it's not. There's a lot of water comes down. That's not Milk River water. That's St. Mary's water that supplements and is put into the river on the United States right before that goes into Canada. So any water that's in there after about the 15th of June is coming from St. Mary's, which they have no claim to whatsoever. Okay, now that's the Milk River. And those are our water. We have 9 of them that we agreed that we would allow the state to take care of. We would honor those state water rights. That's it. And it's completely amazing to me, out of all of the millions, actually it's in the trillions of gallons of water that leave our reservation, that we only have to worry about 9 of these people. And out of those 9 people, 6 of them are tribal members. So it's a very, very small thing to give up, in my opinion, as a part of this compact. And that's all it says. In that compact, if you read it, it's worded kind of crazy because it kind of brought a little alarm to my eyes when I read it. It says all of the water rights for Cutbank Creek belong to the Blackfeet tribe except those that arise under state water right claims. And that's almost exact wording. And all that means is we have all of the water, but we agree to give whatever ones we list the right to use that water. And now I really do want to talk about water volumes, because it's kind of hard to describe when talking about the Marias River and talking about St. Mary's without discussing volumes and how much water is. That you'll see a lot of reports, a lot of engineers, attorneys, all talking about these fancy terms, and to be truthful, I had to go look them up myself to see what it meant. But they talk about CFS. Birch Creek has 20 CFS. What is that? A CFS is a cubic feet of water for every second. Now, how much is a cubic feet of water? I used a prop. This is exactly 1 cubic foot. 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot deep. So if there's 20 cubic feet of water, that means there's 20 of these baskets full of water every second. So that would mean a whole lot of water. I'm not the greatest mathematician in the world, so I'm going to leave it at that. This is how much water would be every second. Now, if we talk about cubic feet of water, this is cubic feet per second. If we talk about cubic feet or acre feet, acre feet of water, 1 acre, the size of 1 acre is 208 feet square. And if you want to give I always have to give a visual for myself. It's roughly the field. If you kind of take that acre, instead of making it square and kind of stretch it out, it's about the size of a football field. So that's about 1 acre foot of water, or that's 1 acre. An acre foot of water would be a foot deep. So you get a football field of water that's 1 foot deep. Okay? Now on the reservation here, if you take all of our streams together, we have over 1 million football fields of water, a foot deep. And to me, that's hard to imagine. It's just so much water, it's almost unbelievable. But that's what we have. That's what leaves the reservation every year. We use a little tiny bit of that. As a matter of fact, including our irrigation, our animals, our towns, every time you take a bath or take a drink of water, everything that's used on the reservation in 1 year is about 200,000 acre feet. And we have 1,280,000 that leave here. So we don't even use a very, very small, tiny part of that. That means somebody else is getting our water for nothing. Okay, and those are basically the terms that we have to. Okay, those are the terms that we have when we're talking about using water. I want to compare. If the same amount of water it takes to irrigate 1 40-acre piece, and I hope most people kind of have an idea about how big 40 acres is. It's about a football field long, a football field wide, and about like that. It's 300 feet square. To irrigate that is the same amount of water it would take to supply the town of Browning, East Glacier, Hart Butte, Babb, and the surrounding area for a year. It's the same amount of water as it takes to irrigate 1 40-acre field. So the amount of water people use is pretty small, actually. Irrigation, what we base our water rights on because it uses the most water. We want to be able to claim the most water we can, so we use irrigation as a way to do that. If we said, okay, well, now we're going to have 1 million people, well, that's only about a couple thousand acres of irrigation. And right now on the Blackfeet Reservation, we're irrigating about 30, 40,000, somewhere in that ballpark. Let's take a break just a quick. So that's the compact in a nutshell. It's an agreement between the Blackfeet tribe and the state of Montana, and it's about who can use the water. The state has been good in dealing with us and saying that they just want to protect those people that are out here using the water that they have in the past, and leaving us pretty much alone to do whatever we want to with the rest of it, how and when and where. But that brings us to Birch Creek. And Birch Creek is those complicated situations that we had. We had two really complicated ones, one on the north border and one on the southern border. Back in 1907 or 1909, somewhere in there was a court case that didn't involve us actually initially. It was called the United States versus the Conrad Investment Company, fighting over how much water this investment company or this irrigation company could take out of the river. So the federal court came up with this ruling, and that ruling said that this company could take about half of the water. Actually, they got a little more than half. They got about 60% of the water, and the other half belonged to the Blackfeet tribe, which we use for irrigation and fisheries and that kind of stuff. And that's been a bone of contention for the tribal councils for a long time, because that Birch Creek most of the time gets almost completely used up, and it's being used by the irrigators off of the reservation, and to the point to where it's just a little trickle that won't let fish survive, and it won't let people enjoy it for swimming or picnics or things like that. So that's been a problem with the council for councils for a long time, and their idea or their plan or their intention was to get the entire stream back belonging to the Blackfeet tribe. So we had to go back and figure out how that might be possible. And the way that ended up being possible was there was a clause in there after the federal court divided up the water. It said the Blackfeet tribe could take more water if we could prove beneficial use. It had to benefit somehow. And we started looking at how we could do that. And so what we did is we came up with an area, and those of you that are familiar with the different regions of the reservation, if you start at Swift Dam and go north, kind of in a circle pattern towards Hart Butte, and then back south towards Birch Creek again, close to 89 there, close to Highway 89. So we just took this little chunk out of there and said we want to irrigate that. Well, that idea wasn't very well received at home here. Our engineers and our attorneys and things like that said, that's not an idea because that's not irrigable land. It's more for grass, more suited for grass and timber and fish and wildlife and those kinds of things. It's not suited for irrigated ground. So my idea was let's run it by them anyhow. Let's see what the state says. The state said, sure, that's fine, and never questioned any part of it. So then we said, okay, we want to be able to plant alfalfa on every one of these acres. And the state came back, and the reason we said alfalfa is because that's the one crop that uses the very most water of all. It uses wheat or barley or any other crop that you can plant. So we said we want to plant it all to alfalfa. And the state came back and said, no, that's not fair. You gotta plant so much barley and so much grain or so much wheat, and then you can plant quite a bit of alfalfa, but you have to plant this other stuff too. And that's just so we could prove how much water we could use. But when we got done and we calculated all the numbers came out, guess what? It was all of the rest of Birch Creek. So that gave us entitlement to the entire. Now, the state was okay with it, and we were jumping up and down for joy with it, but there's the farmers over there that have been using that water for about 100 years that threw a screaming tantrum. They were extremely upset about this because that was going to take away from their livelihood, their ability to irrigate their crops. So the state came back and said, listen, we've got these guys that that are not going to be able to irrigate, and we have to do for them. And our position was, we really don't care. Well, the state came back and said, well, we have to do something for them. That's just something we have to do. And so we came up with a grand plan. If we said we want to irrigate all of that land, and then what we decided we could do, we had to do a whole bunch of studies first. We decided we could take Four-Horn Lake or Four-Horn Reservoir and make it bigger. We put in a bigger dam, bigger, fancier everything, bigger outlets, new ditches and all of that kind of stuff. And by making it bigger, we could provide the same amount of water to those guys that they were taking out of Birch Creek. But I said we had to do all of these studies first. We had to make sure that there was enough water in Badger Creek not to affect anything that because we didn't want to interrupt any livestock water. We didn't want to interrupt any irrigation or people's use for their houses or any irrigation that they might be doing. So we did this study and we found out Badger Creek is one of the best creeks that we have on the whole reservation. It has a certain flow, and it keeps that certain flow almost all year round. It stays steady. It doesn't rise and fall like a lot of our other streams do. So we thought, checked all of that stuff, and we found out it's not going to affect the stream at all in any way. The other thing that we decided we would do is we take a lot of the water during the spring runoff when the creek is naturally high. That would do a couple of things. One, it would give us more water in a short period of time, and then it would help control the level of the creek so that we didn't have any downstream flooding. Downstream flooding has kind of been a thing that's happened year after year for the last million years. The people out there that live there know that. So that all the studies look good that we could do that. And we told the state, okay, we'll put in a pipeline from Four-Horn all the way to Birch Creek, and we'll dump it into and the state thought that was a good idea. And the engineers had to argue about different things, terrain and how the ground looked and all of these kinds of things for a while before we got it all kind of solidified, or we got it all settled. And the other thing that we put in there was that when we pipe this water across there, when we turn that faucet on, they pay us for that water. That water is not free anymore. So we thought that the folks over there, that the irrigators, would be happy with this, that they were going to get water or be able to get water. Well, they weren't. They were still pretty upset. And the reason they were upset was that we said we needed 15 years to get Four-Horn built and this pipeline. We needed at least that amount of time to get that all constructed. Well, they were complaining that during that 15-year period of time, they weren't allowed to use Birch Creek, and they didn't have any water delivered to them, so that they were going to suffer for 15 years. So that's when the state came back and asked if we would defer developing Birch Creek. And I had to sit down and really go through this. I'm one of those people that have to see it a visual rather than in writing and understand it that way. But what it boils down to is that we agree not to irrigate up by that ground that I was talking about from Swift Dam all the way down to Highway 89, all of that ground that we claimed as irrigable. and I gotta stop for just a moment. This is land that we don't have any intention at this time at all in ever irrigating. We want to leave it in its state. We don't want to irrigate this. But it was a way to get this water back to the tribe. So we agreed that for 15 years we wouldn't that stuff that we weren't going to irrigate anyway. So we will let those folks take the water back out of Birch Creek and continue to do that during this 15-year time until we get the pipeline built. Okay, now there's a couple things that go along with that. One of them is, let's say we're really this and we got a bunch of real good construction people and we get this thing built in 5 years. That's all they get is 5 years. The other thing is when the state came to us and presented this, it said, would you people defer using this water? We said, no. You know, that's going to take, and this is using a little bit of cheating. We said, no, that has a potential by irrigating that land from Swift Dam all the way down to 8. That has a potential to earn us this much money every year. And you're asking us to give that up for these people. So they said, okay, what do you, we said, okay, we'll do that, but we want $15 million. That's what our estimate was that was worth for that amount of time. And the state came back and they took a little break in our meeting on that date, and they came back and they said, okay, we'll give you the 15 million. And I my words, but the way they presented it. We'll give you the 15 million to not irrigate the land that you never would have anyway. And I kind of laughed at when I sit back and look. So they're going to give us $15 million. They said, under one condition. We have some more studies that we have to do. We need to get these aerial photos and all of these different things done, and it's going to cost $500,000. We'll get the 15 million, but we need to take 500,000 of it to do this study. So we agreed to that. Right as of today, there is 14.5 million sitting in an account in Helena with our name on it. And as a matter of fact, the tribe asked the governor if that was going to earn interest. And he said, yes, it is. And they said, well, can we keep the interest? Can we have the interest now that it's earning? And he agreed. So every 3 months, the state sends a check for the interest that's on that money in that account for that 14.5 million. Now, what do we have to do with it? That 14 million? There's no restrictions. The tribe has the option to do anything that they want to with it. It's free reign. But that's the bottom line on the Birch Creek Agreement. Now, this is not a part of the compact. This is just a simple agreement like you and I would write out if I was borrowing your lawnmower. It's an agreement that says if the compact gets passed, we'll do this. And the Blackfeet tribe will build a bigger forehorn and build a pipeline over to across Birch Creek. That's all it is. I heard lots of crazy rumors. I heard we sold Birch Creek for $14.5 million. I heard we sold all of our water rights for $14.5 million. But the thing I want to express most of all is it's not a part of the compact, which means it can be changed, deleted, anything at any time. And it's simply a sideline agreement that only goes into effect if the compact gets approved. That's the only time they're kind of tied together, is it doesn't mean anything. It's just thrown in the garbage if the compact is not approved. What happens to the money? The state keeps it. We get to keep the interest that we've been paid, but they keep the money. In addition to that now, in addition to that 14.5 million, that money goes to the tribe just to do whatever. We can build another casino or build schools or do whatever with it. We went to the state and we said, we want you to contribute to this. So the state has agreed. They're going to contribute $40 million to building Four Horn and that pipeline. So, and that money's sitting in an account in Helena as well. We don't have the right to that interest, but it's sitting there. That's Birch Creek. That's the whole thing. Okay, that's the Birch Creek agreement. That was a tough one, and it took quite a while to get that thing all ironed out. We had a lot of different meetings, different people that a lot of them didn't like us, and a lot of them still don't, and they may never like us, but the bottom line is we have to look out for the tribe and the people of our tribe. The next tough one is the St. Mary River. And there's a lot of things with water between 1907 and 1911 during that period of time. But in 1909, the President of the United States entered into an agreement, the King of England. And that was, I'll put it down. And that was a big problem. And the reason it was a big problem is in their agreement, they said the United States half of the water, Canada gets half of the water. And never once did they stop and think this water belongs to the Blackfeet tribe. That never entered into their minds. So consequently, because it never entered their minds, we weren't given a drop. As a matter of fact, if you take more than $1,000 worth of, remember, takes more than $1,000 worth of water out of the St. Mary River, it's a felony. It's a crime, because that water belongs to either Canada or the United States. We don't have any right to it. And that was a huge, huge problem for us. And what happens with this water, the biggest part of it goes down the stream banks into Canada and wherever they get it distributed to. But there's also a big part of it through a canal system that is brought over into the Milk River and brought back into the United States. So it affects other people in the United States downstream. And that starts at Havre and goes all the way to Glasgow. Water that those people drink, all of the water that those people use to bathe, irrigate, water their horses, starts right here. It's our water that gets down there. And if I was curious, we had a bunch of meetings up and down the High Line, and I was curious if these people knew where their water came from. About 90% of them don't. They don't know that their water comes from the St. Mary River. And the reason I say the St. Mary River is because, again, I'm talking about the Milk River, and the Milk River dries up about 8-9 times out of 10 years. So when we get into talking about water with them, we have to make them understand that that's St. Mary water and not Milk River water. If they had to depend on the Milk River water, there wouldn't be a single community up and down the entire High Line. It wouldn't even sustain the people there. So all of this water is being used by all of these people, and we don't get anything. So what we did as a part of our compact, and with the state of Montana, we said we demand 50,000 acre-feet of water. Now that's about the amount that goes down that canal, which would be classified as the United States share. And we said we want all of the United States share. Anybody that wants to use it from that point after will have to come to us, deal with us, and work in that fashion. When the people downstream found out about that, including the Canadians, the people downstream were extremely upset. You know, they're worried about their communities not having water. They're worried about their crops, their horses, and everything else that they use this water for, not having water. That's going to shut it off. Well, that was a good worry, because that was a possibility that we had. And as a part of this, the compact agreement, or the compact itself, in there that we are entitled to this. The state said, that's fine. We agree with you. You folks are entitled to this water. And that brings out another set of problems, because the water in the canal is controlled by the Bureau of Reclamation. The water in our name is controlled by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. At that point, they all turned against us. They're no longer our guardians, which is supposed to be their responsibility. They're our enemies. They're fighting us, because their responsibility in their mind is to someone else and not the Blackfeet tribe. So that's been a huge fight. We've got that amount allocated in our compact, and I'll discuss that process here in just a bit. But the bottom line is we have that water now in the compact. Now there's something else. The Canadians, being really, really smart, came up with this way of dividing up the water during irrigation season and non-irrigation, and spring flows in the fall when it's drought times. They came up with a way of dividing up that water that was good for them and bad for the United States. And the bottom line, when you get all said and done with it, the Canadians were getting about 60% of the water, and the United States was getting about 40%. Well, the United States got the bright idea, okay, these Indians want this water. Let's see if we can renegotiate the way they divide up this water with Canada, and that extra 10% we'll get. So they did. They put together this group with the support of the Premier of Canada, and the Governor of Montana signed an agreement that said they would do this. When we got wind of it, we threw a little fit and said that we needed to be a part of that group as well. So they did. They put a place on there for the Blackfeet tribe as well as Fort Belknap tribe. And my position in attending these meetings was, the Canadians throughout these meetings have kind of skirted the sidelines, saying, oh, well, you know, we're not really stealing from you. And the guys from the state are saying, yeah, you are stealing from us. You're taking more than you're supposed to. And my position was, I don't care who's stealing from who. If there's extra water that comes to the United States, it belongs to the Blackfeet tribe. And that's expressed loud and clear over and over and over to them. And the Canadians finally agreed. The state of Montana is really angry at us for doing that. And but the bottom line is that agreement's not complete. They are still trying to figure out how they're gonna do all of that. And one of the ways of controlling water best of all is with storage. And the Canadians don't have a place up there that they can build a dam. There's just nothing along that waterway is good to build a dam. The state of Montana doesn't have any place good to build a dam down there. And when it comes back into the United States north of Havre. They've got one right now, and it's a crappy setup. It's a bad deal, and it wouldn't do any help to build another one. So everybody kind of looked to us, and I said, you betcha. We will store water here. You pay for it. But we have the right to market that water to whoever. We can market that water to Canada. We can market that water to these people downstream. Whoever comes up with the most money has the right to use that water. But we will build the storage on the reservation. And it scared the crap out of all of them when I brought that up. But the bottom line is, we are in a good position in that regard to control through storage, because we have the only really logical place to dam it up. And again, that's not settled. That's an agreement that's ongoing. Anybody that has concerns about that needs to address the St. Mary state of Montana and Canada issue. Or they're still having meetings, and we don't have any representation there. Right now it's really, really scary. But the bottom line is we are guaranteed 50,000 acre feet out of that system with a possibility of getting another 10% of additional water, and the ability to build storage without costing us anything, and a place to market it. So that's St. Mary's in a nutshell. There's one little thing that I wanted to mention. The Bureau of Reclamation has entered into irrigation contracts. They're marketing our water downstream, and we're not getting a dime of that. We put Bureau of Reclamation on notice that when this compact, the date that this compact is approved, that all of that money will come to the Blackfeet tribe. It'll be the first water marketing set up out there in history for tribal members, or for tribes, period. Now, that means when we get to Congress, they're going to fight us. Okay, now I want to get into that really quickly. What is this whole process? The whole process is we have the right to negotiate this contract. And to me, that's our sovereignty, because we did the negotiation. We decide who gets to use our water, and we decide when they get to use it and how it's used. If we don't do that, we immediately go into federal water court. And federal water court says, first of all, that because the title is not in our name first, the United States government, the BIA and Bureau of Reclamation and all those folks, get to bring their attorneys and represent us. We sit in the back of the room and get what they get for us. The second thing is that this is the one that scares me the very most. The federal water courts have in the past, and it's set a precedent now, that says you only get the water that you're using today. Let me give you an example. We have 1,280,000 acre what? We have 1,280,000 acre feet of water that flows off our reservation every year. Right now, we're getting nothing for it. We're using about 200,000 acre feet. That's all we would be, is just that. The rest of that we would have no control over. The state of Montana would regulate how it's used and where. And any of that excess water goes downstream. We don't get compensated for any of it. We don't get to say how it's used. We don't get anything. So that's the part that scares me the very most. And the one that has is demonstrated that the most is Wind River. They were in a position the same way we were. They didn't like the state. To hell with those guys. We're not gonna deal with the state. We're gonna fight them in court. They went to court. The court said, okay, you get this much water. This is what you're using today. That's what you get. So they went home, and in the meantime, they bought a couple farms. They went to go turn the irrigation switch on to irrigate their farms, and the state came back and said, nope, because that wasn't included in this date on there. So you don't get to irrigate your own land with your own water. So what happened was, the very first thing they did is they went to the state and they said, well, we made a mistake. Can we go back into negotiations? And the state said, sorry, you had your chance. Tough luck. So then they took it to the Supreme Court. In June of 2006 was the last time that they had gone to the Supreme Court. Each time they went back, the Supreme Court kicked it out. June of 2006, the Supreme Court said, listen, folks, you had your chance to negotiate this. You had an opportunity to enter into a compact. You fought it all the way, but you're stuck with it. Don't come back to the Supreme Court. And they are completely devastated at this point with their water rights. So what happens is, if we don't enter into this compact and get it ratified with the Congress, we'll immediately go to court, and that's what will happen. And that's the thing the worst thing that could ever happen to the Blackfeet tribe in the history of our tribe. You know, we've had land taken from us throughout history, and our reservation has been shortened up every time we turn around, and our rights to use our reservation have been people have tried to come in and limit that. But the loss of this water is going to mean the one thing that has the most damage. It will mean the most money that we've ever lost out in history,